Have you ever felt, even for a brief moment, that there's something fundamentally wrong with what you've been told about who you are? Have you ever felt that sense of strangeness in front of the mirror, that sudden doubt? Am I really just this name, this body, this short story? What if I told you that this unease isn't for nothing? What if I proved to you today that you've lived before many times, and that, for very specific reasons, you were trained to forget everything? Pause for a second. Remember a dream so real it blurred with waking life. Recall that intense déjà vu, that familiarity with places or people you should never have known. Why do these feelings exist? What are they trying to tell you? You've been conditioned from an early age to ignore these questions, to accept fragile certainties, to stifle the mystery. But now, here I invite you. What if you dared to look behind the veil? Get ready, because what you've always felt will, for the first time, be said out loud. And make no mistake, nothing you'll see here will be simply intellect or blind faith. It will be experience, flesh, awakened memory. Before we dive deeper, an important pause. If you feel there's something different about you, if this inner calling makes sense, go ahead and leave a like, comment below if you've had a strong déjà vu, and subscribe to the channel. That's the only way you'll ensure you don't miss the continuation of this mystery, and, most importantly, connect with other awakened people like you. Now, take a deep breath and allow yourself to continue. Imagine for a moment that everything you've been told about beginning, middle, and end is incomplete. The timeline you learned, birth, growth, death, is only a fraction of the true story. What they forgot to tell you is that your birth wasn't the beginning. Your childhood wasn't the first adventure. You've worn many names, you've embraced different mothers, you've loved, hated, fought, saved, and fallen under other suns. Why does no one talk openly about this? Why is the feeling of something greater treated as taboo? The reason is deeper than you imagine, and it holds an ancient secret. But to understand, you must accept you were trained to forget. And the key question is, who and why? From your very first breath, something crucial was sealed in your consciousness. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't by chance. You were, and still are, induced into forgetfulness. And to understand how much this enigma defines your destiny, we need to look at childhood, at society, at the real world around us. When you were born, your mind was an open field, fertile ground for the deepest seeds. What do you remember from your early years? Almost nothing. And it's not because you were immature. It's because, almost like a silent ritual, you entered the school of forgetting. How does this work? First, the environment. Adults saying dreams are nonsense. Parents and teachers teaching that imagination is childish. Television, cartoons, books all, little by little, teach you forget, grow up, be like everyone else. The few who dare to remember, the child who sees something invisible, the little one who speaks of a strange name, of another family or a distant war, are stifled with laughter, concern, doctors, medicine. Think about yourself. Did you ever, in childhood, have an invisible friend or a certainty that you were someone different? Remember that strange feeling when you heard an old song or saw photos of distant cities? How many times were you corrected, brought back to reality? This conditioning process is not only cultural, but almost a psychic design. Society, with all its machinery, media, school, dogmas, repeats in unison. Be rational. Forget the impossible. Move on. But why? Why this concern with making you forget? There is, behind the veil of normality, a deep interest in keeping you disconnected from your own essence. The question that echoes is, who benefits from your forgetfulness? Who invests so much to ensure you never question appearances? Imagine, what if remembering who you were completely changed the game? What if this memory made you too free, too strong, too unpredictable? It's time to lay it all bare. You were trained to forget because remembering is revolutionary. And only those who have begun to wake up understand the discomfort and excitement of this call. Feel it now. Breathe slowly. Let that ancient unease surface. It's the beginning of the rescue, even if you don't yet know where all this will lead you. Think about ancient civilizations, Egypt, Tibet, India, cultures where remembering past lives wasn't taboo, but an essential part of the process of self-knowledge. In pharaonic Egypt, remembering was a power reserved for the initiates. The priests, guardians of forbidden knowledge, guided the soul through the corridors of forgetfulness, using symbols, rituals, and altered states of consciousness. In Tibet, lamas recognized boys as reincarnations of masters, guiding them from a young age to recall their spiritual legacy. In India, the scriptures speak of samsara, of endless cycles, of lessons that traverse generations, bodies, eras. These peoples knew. The memory of the soul is a forgotten technology, a magnificent resource that mysteriously modern society has made sure to erase. Have you ever wondered why so much fascination, so many movies, series, books about Egyptian mysteries, Tibetan monks, Indian sages? Why, even today, deep in the collective unconscious, do these cultures continue to call our attention? It's because, somewhere deep down, your soul recognizes something was there, something lost, a key, a map, a secret that cannot be spoken, only felt. But with the advance of time, something changed. Western rationality, the empire of facts, the dogma of skepticism, all this took over, stifling, ridiculing, declaring war on the invisible. What was once direct experience became history, myth, fantasy. Rituals were destroyed, temples forgotten, initiations extinct. Modern man became an orphan of his own soul. If you feel nostalgia for what you've never lived, if landscapes, music, ancient languages touch you without explanation, no, it's not just imagination. It's your ancestral memory fighting to emerge, even buried under tons of programmed forgetfulness. You are the link in a chain that was never truly broken. With every unease, every spiritual quest, you get closer to what the ancients already knew. Remembering is not a luxury. It's the survival of the soul. And if you feel this call, you are not alone. There are thousands, millions, spread across the world, all instinctively trying to retrieve the golden thread of memory. The good news? Nothing was truly lost. What was buried is now beginning to awaken. Now we need to face an uncomfortable truth. Why, after all this haste to make you forget? What is the real fear behind this monumental effort? The answer is simple and terrifying. Remembering who you were threatens the very foundation of the system. Think. How do you govern someone who doesn't fear death? How do you manipulate someone who doesn't feel dogmatic guilt, who doesn't bow to the fear of eternal damnation? How do you control the cycles of the masses if each person knows that life is just a stage and that their essence is immortal? Throughout the centuries, dogmatic religions, authoritarian governments, and even institutionalized science have fiercely fought against anything that could remind people of their spiritual power. The Church, fearing to lose the monopoly on salvation, decreed reincarnation is heresy. Kings, fearing to lose power, banned all initiatic tradition, burned books, destroyed temples, exiled the wise. The modern system, media, education, medicine, perpetuates the cycle. Memory, taboo. Direct experience, madness. Seeking answers outside the norm, danger. And so generations grow up believing they are just products of chance, that they must fear, obey, consume, and seek happiness on the outside, never within. But look, every time someone dares to remember, every report of a child talking about another life, every suppressed research, the system trembles. Because remembering is, above all, an act of rebellion. A silent refusal to be just another one. Imagine now a world where millions of people like you retrieve the thread of soul memory. How would relationships be? The fear of death, guilt, anxiety, the panic of losing everything. Yes, you are a threat to the system when you start remembering. And make no mistake, they know it. They tremble before those who fear nothing. That's why stories of past lives are ridiculed, treated as fantasy, delusion, childishness. But the more you silence your inner calling, the more the system wins. Now I ask you, will you continue to accept this role of the forgotten? Or will you, finally, seek what is hidden, challenge the order, and free your essence? If you choose to wake up, you won't be alone. You are part of a new lineage. Those who dare to remember, those who defy fear, those who are ready to transform the world, starting with themselves. Remember, the awakening you begin here echoes for generations, and it's up to you to decide if you'll be just another one, or the beginning of a silent revolution. Close your eyes for a moment. Breathe. Feel your own body. Your heart beats, air goes in and out, thoughts pulse in your mind. But where, after all, do your memories reside? Not those of childhood, not old birthday photos, but the secret memories, the ones that insist on emerging in dreams, in synchronicities, in moments when you feel like you've been here before. If forgetfulness is programmed, how do you access what has been hidden? The answer is beyond logic, beyond words, and even beyond mental images. It's in the language of the soul. The soul doesn't record memories like a diary. It doesn't narrate, explain, or construct sentences. Its language is made of vibrations, symbols, sensations so vivid that they don't always fit into words. Think, have you ever felt such an intense emotion in front of a place, a smell, a sound, without any rational explanation? Have you felt an irrational fear of water, of heights, of crowds, of enclosed spaces, as if your whole body was screaming something your mind couldn't translate? These are echoes of the soul's language, and that's precisely where the awakening begins. For thousands of years, sages and initiates sought ways to open the door to these hidden records. They discovered that the key lies in changing the state of consciousness, in accessing deeper zones of one's being. It's not enough to think. You need to feel, vibrate, tune in. The path? A secret technique, an ancient method but still alive, transmitted in some hidden lines of tradition. It involves breath, not the superficial daily breath, but conscious deep breathing, capable of altering brain frequency. It involves sound, the use of ancestral mantras, of instruments that produce rhythms capable of loosening the fabric of time. It involves silence, not emptiness, but full, attentive silence where the soul can manifest. And above all, it involves presence, the rare art of being here, now, whole, without distraction, without escape. Imagine yourself now, eyes closed, breathing deeply, feeling every cell of your body. Hear the deep sound of a drum, an ancestral chant echoing in the background. Feel yourself passing through a tunnel of lights and shadows. Suddenly an image appears, a smell, a word, an unknown place. You realize you're not dreaming, you're experiencing. This is the threshold of awakening. This technique is not a fantasy. It has been applied, tested, refined over centuries. And the most surprising thing, ordinary people, people like you, have been able to access memories of other lives, not through stories told, but through experiences so intense that they changed their way of existing. Why doesn't anyone teach you this in school? Why isn't it in textbooks or TV shows? Because awakening is dangerous. Because remembering is breaking the chains that bind you to the surface. Because only those who dare to cross this door can truly free themselves from the cycle of forgetting. And you, are you ready to learn the secret language of your soul? Are you ready to feel, see, hear, and heal what was lost between the ages? If the answer is yes, stay with me. The next secret is closer than you think. Many still doubt, question, laugh, dismiss all this as madness. After all, where's the proof? Where are the facts, the data, the experiments that show past memories exist? But what few people know is that science itself has stumbled upon this mystery and silently tried to cover its tracks. Imagine a laboratory, serious researchers, doctors. Among them, one name stands out, Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist at the University of Virginia. Between the 1960s and 2000s, Stevenson traveled the world, interviewing children who claimed to clearly remember past lives. These are detailed accounts, names, addresses, families, violent deaths, children from distant places, different cultures who never met, but report similar stories. Stevenson was not a mystic. He was skeptical, methodical, demanding. He cataloged more than 2,000 cases, checked documents, interviewed witnesses, compared birthmarks with fatal wounds described by the children. The results? Dozens of cases practically inexplicable by standard science. The boy who described the home and death of an unknown soldier in another country. The girl who narrated details of a life in the last century, including names and customs of a village she had never visited. And what happened to this research? It was ignored, marginalized, ridiculed by universities that prefer the old paradigm. Only what can be measured exists. Revealing these discoveries to the world threatened not only religious dogmas, but also the empire of modern neurology, psychiatry, and scientific materialism. Stevenson died with hundreds of mysterious cases in his hands. His legacy remains hidden, cited only by courageous individuals who dare to ask, what if it's true? But not just him. In Brazil, Dr. Hernani Guimarães Andrade, a physicist and researcher, founded the Brazilian Institute of Psychobiophysical Research and recorded impressive cases of children who drew maps of cities, places, and people that only existed in other regions or eras. In India, in Middle Eastern countries, in Africa, similar reports accumulate, always with the same characteristic: young children, without access to information, describing lives, personalities, injuries, phobias, tastes, and talents that don't fit their current contexts. And when the media dares to give space, cases are quickly reduced to coincidences, or treated as products of fertile imagination, or at most, results of unresolved family traumas. But if everything was just imagination, why do children stop remembering around age 7? Why do memories come with violent emotions, instinctive fears, and even innate abilities, like playing instruments, speaking unknown languages, replicating ancient handwriting? Why do past life traumas appear as physical symptoms and disappear after hypnotic sessions, as documented by therapists around the world? The establishment trembles at these questions. Science, despite its advances, is limited by the paradigms of the time. What doesn't fit current models is denied, stifled, labeled as pseudoscience. But the truth? It resists in living experience, in testimony, in marks that time cannot erase. If you seek evidence, look beyond textbooks, listen to the children's stories, research, question, investigate. The secret is always protected by those who fear its revelation the most. So are you ready to challenge what you've been taught? Ready to be the new scientist of your own soul? The journey doesn't end here. The next step is to rescue what was buried, the schools of mystery. Imagine yourself walking down a stone corridor, lit by burning torches illuminating ancient symbols on the walls. The smell of incense, the whisper of calm voices, the vigor of a silence full of meaning. You are entering a mystery school as they existed in Egypt, India, Greece, Atlantis, perhaps in places history chose to forget. These schools were not ordinary temples, nor prayer centers. They were living laboratories where direct experience was the method, not repeated dogmas. There the bravest sought a supreme goal, to awaken to the mystery of being, to cross forgetfulness, to rediscover their own soul in its entirety. What happened in these schools? Secret rituals, yes, but above all practices. Deep and conscious breathing exercises, chants, mantras, instruments that produced specific frequencies, meditation in absolute silence, visualization guided by masters using symbols and myths to access hidden layers of the mind, emotional ordeal, fasting, contact with nature, temporary isolation. It wasn't about indoctrination, but about living the experience. It wasn't blind faith, it was subjective, but intense and transformative confirmation. The masters of these schools, Egyptian priests, Indian yogis, Greek Pythagoreans, knew that true remembrance only emerged through the body, feeling, and conscious ecstasy. The myth of Isis and Osiris, the crossing of souls by Egyptian chariots, Plato's cave, tantric rebirth, all these are symbols of a real process, accessing what was buried, remembering what needs to be healed, awakening to who you are beyond the masks. And why were these schools destroyed, persecuted, hidden? Because they represented danger. Because in them, the initiate learned that they were free from dogmas, free from kings, free from systems. Remember, every system that wants to control needs to create ignorance. Every authority that fears rebellion destroys the initiates. In the Middle Ages, the Inquisition crushed the mystery schools. Temples were burned, libraries destroyed, masters killed, disciples scattered. The heritage was buried, but not extinguished. Today, vestiges of these schools echo in yoga traditions, in hermetic groups, in discrete orders, in brilliant therapists who reuse ancient techniques under new names. Modern rituals, holotropic breathing, active meditation, trance states, all are legacies of greater knowledge, surviving on the fringes of official history. And you? Do you feel the call of these schools? Do you hear the echo of mystery when you read an ancient myth? When you see architectural symbols, when you dream of temples or secret meetings? Perhaps you were once an initiate. Perhaps your quest now is precisely to resume the interrupted thread of memory. The secret was never lost, just hidden, waiting for those who dare to seek it again. Now, this is your invitation. The ancients passed the baton. It's up to you to relearn, practice, remember. The journey is not easy, but it is the only one capable of restoring humanity's true greatness. With each step, you become less a product of the system and more a living heir to a tradition that can never, ever be extinguished. Think for a moment. How many ideas have you truly chosen to believe? How much of what you consider reality is, in fact, a carefully rehearsed script, repeated ad nauseum by invisible voices over the decades. The press, school, the church pulpit, medical manuals, the authoritative voice of the teacher, the doctor, the priest, the politician, they all say, "This is the truth. Stop asking questions. Move on." Do you realize how this shapes every aspect of your identity? From an early age, we're bombarded with narratives that stifle questioning and, most importantly, crush the search for origins. Today, disguised as progress and modernity, the mechanisms of conditioning are even more sophisticated. It's no longer about openly prohibiting or physically punishing those who dare to remember. The method is subtle, but equally efficient: constant distraction and anesthesia. Have you noticed how modern life teaches you to never be silent, to never stop to feel? All the time, an avalanche of stimuli, notifications, series, news, advertising slogans, influencers selling patterns of success, fast food happiness, superficial spirituality. Amnesia today is maintained by the excess of noise. The fear of being alone with your thoughts is encouraged. Deep memory gives way to obedience to repetition. If discomforts, traumas, emotional patterns that don't make sense arise, a quick solution promptly appears: a diagnosis, a pill, a label, a treatment. But the symptom isn't removed, only silenced. The result is the emergence of an entire society of people disconnected from themselves, anesthetized, incapable of looking inward with courage. Any deeper question is ridiculed. Did you dream? Forget it. Did you see something? See a psychiatrist. Did you remember? Take some medicine. And so true memories, innate talents, vocations that belong to your essence are suppressed. How many times have you felt intense fear or guilt for no reason? How many gifts, music, drawing, even the way you speak or walk, emerge without explanation, only to be abandoned in the name of realism? This is no coincidence. It's the price paid by a system that prefers predictable, controllable, molded individuals. The past doesn't interest the system except as propaganda, as ruin, as fantasy. The future is sold in installments, in empty promises. The present is diluted in distraction. But for those who begin to remember, everything changes. Old traumas find names, meaning, healing. Talents resurface as mysterious forces demanding release. That feeling of not belonging gives way to recognition. I am, because I was, and I will be again by choice. That's why awakening is so unsettling. And that's why, if you've come this far, you should question: which memories are truly yours? What do you choose to remember? What will you surrender to oblivion? And what will you rescue at all costs? If you feel something big is repressed, no, it's not weakness, it's a calling. And the key to this rescue is near. Let's move on to the next step, the process of remembering. Now take a deep breath. Feel yourself crossing an invisible threshold. The process of retrieving memories isn't intellectual. It's not just about studying books or hearing stories. It's about diving within yourself, accessing hidden portals in your subconscious. And for this, there are clear, tested methods, taught for centuries in mystery circles, and now even recognized by alternative neuroscience. The body is the archive. Emotion is the password. Trance, that state between waking and sleeping, is the door. It all begins with the simple yet profound act of breathing. Breathing slowly, consciously, circularly. Each inhale brings you to the now. Each exhale makes space for the ancient to emerge. Sounds, mantras, rhythmic beats, vibrational songs act as waves that synchronize brain frequencies, inducing the theta state, the same as lucid dreams, childhood, access to the deep mind. The process can start with a guided visualization. You imagine a portal, a light, a long corridor. At first, symbols emerge: a color you've never seen, a forgotten smell, a sensation of cold or heat that doesn't belong to the here and now. Slowly, the images come together, forming scenes, unknown faces, familiar environments, intense emotions. Sometimes the memory comes like a film, other times like a flash, a jolt in the chest, an inexplicable cry. The body responds, the heart races, hands sweat, breathing changes, tears well up. Perhaps fear comes, perhaps joy, perhaps pain, always accompanied by a feeling of, this is real, I lived this. And then, the magic. Forgotten memories bring with them the deepest healings. When you relive an old pain, it dissolves. When you retrieve an old love, it strengthens your current relationships. That fear of water can disappear. That inexplicable insecurity dissolves. That repressed talent explodes with energy. This is how traumas that have no explanation find meaning. This is how family patterns, fears, illnesses, repetitions of failure are finally broken. not by willpower but by awareness. And all of this is not fantasy. It's not theater. It's a visceral experience that changes who you are and what you feel from now on. Countless reports show people who, after accessing past memories, change professions, heal illnesses, transform relationships, discover hidden missions. Remembering is not a luxury. It's the key to transformation. It's the beginning of a life where the past serves as a springboard, not as shackles. Only you can cross this portal. Only you can accept. Remembering requires courage, surrender, self-love. And the most incredible thing, every time someone remembers, the whole world changes, even if just a little. We're getting to the final secret. But first, if this content is moving you, don't forget, like the video, comment "I chose to remember," and subscribe. This is more than clicking. It's declaring to the universe your commitment to awakening. Now let's go to the climax. The responsibility of the Je awakened. We've reached the critical point. What happens when you truly remember? When you're no longer just a spectator of your own life, but the author of an epic saga that spans centuries, continents, inner and outer worlds. First, you free yourself from the greatest fear of all, the fear of the end. Understanding that death is not a termination, but merely a pause, completely transforms your relationship with life. You stop living in anxiety, chasing validation, hiding from your own emptiness. Instead of fleeing suffering, you learn to transmute it, because you understand that everything is part of a larger cycle. Second, you gain the power to choose. You're no longer a hostage to circumstances, inherited traumas, family repetitions. You can look back, recognize patterns, forgive, release, rewrite history from the present moment. Third, you receive a mission. Awakening isn't individual. Those who remember pave the way for others to remember too. Every person who heals a pattern, who retrieves a talent, who trusts their intuition, becomes a beacon for everyone around them. Imagine a world where millions of people remember who they are. Fear loses its power. Power changes hands. Relationships are more authentic, deeper, based on purpose, on real connection, no longer on neediness, fear, or obligation. But, and here's the secret, few tell, remembering implies responsibility. It takes courage to no longer hide, to embrace your gifts and shadows, to be an example, to not turn back at the first sign of system resistance. Awakening provokes reactions. You might be called strange, a dreamer, crazy, but gradually you'll find allies, people who also feel, remember, seek. Silent networks form, support groups, self-discovery communities. And in the end, you realize the mission of awakening isn't just individual, it's collective. Every retrieved memory is an essential piece of a larger puzzle, which only makes sense when everyone unites to remember together. And now, only one decision remains. Will you end this cycle of forgetfulness here, or will you continue, deepen, seek the next key? If you felt the call, I want to invite you to subscribe to our exclusive newsletter. There, we share practices, stories, experiences, and secrets that don't appear anywhere else. It's for those who truly want to go further. Or, if you prefer, stay with me in the next video, because the mystery, like any good journey, never ends in a single episode. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. Remember, your awakening inspires others. The world awaits your next step, and it all begins when you dare to remember.